Wait, start 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes.
If you want to stand, you stand. If you want to sit, you've got opportunities.
We're just gonna scooch this.
Don't start till I give you, okay.
You got it.
All right.
Wherever you like for me to stand.
If I say test.
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Testing 1 2. Make sure you guys, because the cameras make this look bigger from us back in. So on either side. And then everybody step forward so that you guys are closer to the front. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're starting in about 2 after the hour. You got a minute or two. Sure. Hi.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we're good on our side. Good afternoon. Well, I'll make sure everybody's set up. Fastest cameraman in the West. You good? Okay. I'm good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby DiCello, and I have the tremendous privilege and honor of representing the family of Jayland Walker, his mother, Pamela, his sister, Jada, and of course, Jayland. Today we're going to hear from myself and my partner, Ken Barno. We also will hear a comment or two from others on our team, Paige White and Joe Fouché III. We gathered today happy, lifted, encouraged by the work of our investigative team. I want to thank our investigators and all who have supported us throughout the time that it's taken for us to get to this day, where that because this is a filed criminal or civil matter, we're not going to be commenting about the nature of our investigation. We'll not take any questions about how we got the information that's presented here in the complaint. We will not be commenting about the lawsuit itself. Everybody deserves a fair day in court, and we anticipate that the court and the parties to this case will get that fair trial here in Akron. This case has been filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Ohio. We have Judge Adams assigned to the case. For the media who are interested, there are copies of the complaint that can be made available and that you can access from our media director. We have the complaint and we have the exhibit. These two documents begin to tell the true story of what happened here in Akron and with Jayland Walker. These two documents tell the story of what's been happening here in Akron since 1998. The story of how Jayland Walker died begins in that year when this newsletter was circulated to officers within the Akron Police Department. A newsletter that is full of, the only thing I can call it, hateful, violent porn. This is not even the rantings of an angry person or persons. It's the rantings of a hateful and violent person or persons. And you might ask, why are you bringing out a newsletter from 1998 and 99? Because the author of this document became a captain at your department. He was never fired. And he retired with full benefits in 2019. Your tax dollars are paying his current retirement, his pension. I'm showing you this document today because, and you will see it throughout this case, because this same document, full of hateful, unbelievably violent scenes, was read and reviewed by officers who are currently employed, one of whom is the union chief, the head of the union. He's a detective. Received this document and commented about it during the internal affairs investigation that it created. And at the time, he didn't find anything offensive about it. He said it was taken out of context. I defy any rational human being to tell me what the context of this is if it's not hate speech, if it's not the most vile representation of the Akron community, referring to people in this community as species, referring to the arrest of a person as a takedown and it tagging their ear, referring to a species that travels at high rates of speed in excess of 20 or 23 miles an hour on uneven terrain. You'll read that and more in this document. When I learned this document existed, I couldn't believe it. I had to see it from my own eyes. And so we are presenting it to the world. We want everyone to read what we have provided to you, and it will speak for itself. This document, the lawsuit, will also speak for itself today. We're not going to comment about the allegations except that they are written and we believe them all to be true. They are the basis of our investigation, and we're very proud of what we've produced here. Jayland Walker's death has been mischaracterized as his fault, and we stand today to respond to the extraordinary pressure that was put on his family throughout the time it's taken us to get this to this point. The attacks on Jayland's character, the attacks on Jayland's state of mind, the attacks on Jayland's approach to his life or to the decisions he made on June 26th and 27th of last year. Those attacks were as repugnant then as they are today. And when you measure those attacks against the documents that the city has never shown you, when you measure those attacks against the hateful language that the police officers of your department have shared as jokes to each other, and when you measure the things that they said about Jayland, you'll know who the real monster is in this case, and it is not Jayland Walker. I stand against hate. I wake up every morning early and I think about Jayland and his family and how they've been ruined by hate. I work with this team every single day because they stand against hate. This lawsuit is way bigger than Jayland Walker. This lawsuit is a document that speaks for the I don't know how many people that have been arrested and mercilessly treated by your city police department. This document stands for them too, because this has been a systemic failure Policing in Akron has been an abomination of policing. And it is our fervent hope that the mischaracterizations of Jayland Walker will now fade into memory, like this document, this newsletter faded into the memory of Akron. It's our hope that the attacks on Jayland are now seen for what they really were, and what this entire charade of an investigation by the state into Jayland Walker's death has been, but a cover-up and a protection for the officers involved. They fear the voice of the Freedom Bloc. They fear the people who want to know the truth. And they know how, and they train their officers on how to avoid that scrutiny. That's in this complaint. And so, my tone, though stern, is still uplifted. My heart feels good today, but heavy. I never imagined I'd be here, speaking on behalf of this family and about to expose one of the most corrupt police departments I've ever seen. It is not Jayland Walker who has been the menace in this case. It's been the city's police department and its culture of violence and hate. Thank you. Having said that, I will cede the mic now to my partner, Ken Barr.
This has truly been a very challenging day. A day that has hope that we will now be able to hold people accountable, be able to get to the transparency and have the transparency that was promised to everybody beginning on June 27th of last year. Our complaint sets out facts that we are well aware of. We intend to prove and will prove each of those facts that we have set forth in our complaint. We have not just said them to say them, but we have said them because they are true. One of the other things, though, we want to make sure everybody is aware of is that we filed another document today. A document that we filed to ask that officers 1 through 8, their names be down as pseudonyms or be on the complaint as pseudonyms. And some may ask, well, why did you do that? This isn't about the lawyers and the lawyers pronouncing the names of these officers. We have heard through the city that they have hoped to not publicly announce those names. And so that no one can accuse the lawyers of gamesmanship, the lawyers for the Walker family of gamesmanship. We have filed a request with the court to allow those officers' names to be anonymous at this point. It will be up to the court to decide whether those names will be released. It will be up to the city to determine if they choose to release the names of those officers. But we do not want to take away from the importance of this event and the importance of the filing and the importance of this to the Walker family by creating any type of fervor over the pronouncement of the names. Because we're here for the Walker family. We're here for the community of the city of Akron, who, as you heard from Bobby, had to live with this terror, sheer terror, for so many years. Jayland was a wonderful young man, and never once has that been said. by the officers or their representatives. They've wanted to tear him down. We are here to lift him up, to show you the man that he was. And we are also here to reveal what the city really is. And our complaint sets that out. And Exhibit 1 to the complaint sets that out. Accountability starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. Transparency starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. Getting to the facts starts today with the filing of the lawsuit. What has been shared with everyone so far has been filtered. The facts have been filtered. We are going to now be able to take the filter off and get to the real facts. And we will all learn that Jayland should not have died on June 27th. There was no reason for him to die on June 27th. We will honor his legacy every day that we move forward in this case. Everything we do will serve to honor his legacy. We appreciate the courage that Pam and Jada have shown, that Pastor Robert has shown throughout these most trying times. We are now here to start the journey to justice. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Paige White.
Today begins the journey to justice for Jayland Walker, and the journey to justice for Pam and Jada Walker, and for this Akron community. You see, in this past year, we gave the state of Ohio a chance to get accountability and some semblance of justice, and they failed. Throughout this year, it's been a continuous stream of mischaracterizations. Jayland was violent, he was a menace, and in some ways brought it on himself. That's what this family has had to deal with, on top of losing their loved one. But today, the Walker family reclaims their narrative, and they're able to tell the story of Jayland and what happened to him almost a year ago. And see, through this lawsuit, this newsletter demonstrates what Black and brown people have known since the inception of this country, which is that the racist foundations that breed police departments like this are breed officers who put 90 bullets towards a single human. This newsletter talks about the community members as though they are animals. And one of the first things I said in this lawsuit was, we don't treat dogs that way. I am so proud to stand next to this family and stand next to my partners as we walk down this road to get justice for Jayland Walker.
And we're going to hear from Joe Fouché III.
Good afternoon. I'm going to keep this brief. I believe my partner said everything that needs to be said, and out of respect to the case, I just want to bring everybody's attention today. The Department of Justice released the investigation for the George Floyd case and the Minneapolis Police Department. And this is the Friday before Juneteenth, which is supposed to be a celebration. And we just want to take note of the hallowed ground we stand on and what today means for this case. Thank you.
I'm reminded by Paige to just mention that there will be a march that's going to be being organized right now by local community leaders that's taking the Jayland Walker story to Washington, D.C. on the 27th of this month. I did speak to Pastor Robert, who's here on my left. He said that he's not going to be speaking at this point, so we appreciate his presence here. And I just want to say on his behalf how grateful I have been for his counsel, for his steadfast leadership of this family. I know he wouldn't say it, but he's been through a lot. He's endured both local and regional criticisms for the positions he's taken here on behalf of his own family. And he's shouldered that willingly and has embraced it. So I want to thank him as well as all of his church for supporting the family, as they have been very, very, very much supported by the activities of the Church of God in Christ, as well as Pastor Robert's leadership at that church. Having said that, I have no other statements to make at this time, and if there's questions, we'll gladly take a few. Again, please remember, we're not going to be taking any questions about the nature of the investigation, how we got the information. We're not going to be commenting about specific allegations in the lawsuit because those allegations speak for themselves. However, if you do have questions about those allegations in a way that I can't answer them, I'll do my best.
I know that Ms. Walker is very judicious when she speaks, but I know that a lot of people like to hear from her strength and to hear what she just meant to say about what she wants to gain from this lawsuit. Ms. Walker,
I appreciate your question, and you know, it's a thoughtful question, and you offer those all the time, so we appreciate that. I've talked to Pam about speaking, and her words were, if I hear too much, I might just start crying out. This is a complicated experience for her, because this details the loss of her son's life, as well as it details his martyrdom. As the mother of one who's been martyred, she suffers with that loss. I can tell you that when we spoke of the lawsuit, including the various allegations about it, she was very careful to tell me something that I will share with you. She said, this is not about the money. This is about this never happening again. And this is about the dignity of my son. So as a very private person, she's opted not to speak today because this is a heavy moment for her and a moment that doesn't give her all of the open kind of embrace that she has gotten from her children and from her family.
Do you and the family plan to go to Washington as well on June 27th?
Our entire team intends on going to support that experience, and part of that experience is going to be to speak to and ask for an audience with the Department of Justice. We can.
Does that include the family as well?
Yes, that would include the family as well. Yes.
Can you talk at all about any of the changes that you'd like to see within the Akron Police Department?
Yeah, you know, I note that in the media the other day, Chief Milet spoke of changes that are coming. How interesting that the pursuit policy is being changed. We embrace the fact that that's happening. We'd like to be a part of the wording of that pursuit policy because the woman seated to my left lost her son to the unconstitutional way in which they chased him down and killed him. So the first change I'd like to see is a dialogue with a city that's kept itself quiet. You know, there's a phrase that police use, and it's constant, it's ever present. If you didn't do anything wrong, just talk to me. If it's not your fault, what do you have to fear? And we've never once been invited to speak with them about what they did to Jayland. So I'd love an opportunity to talk with the city leadership. I know we have a new mayor coming in the coming months, and I remain open to, on behalf of the family, a dialogue that invites the local community to have a voice in how they are policed. Those changes are fundamental to a contemporary and modern police force. It used to be in the old days, as Paige mentioned, the history of this institution called policing, it's terrifying when you realize, as she has taught me and others have taught me, that this institution started to keep slaves in check. And it's evolved since then, but it's evolved oftentimes in curiously strange and grotesque ways. Like, for example, they should not be training their officers on how to say the right pretty words in a police report. We'd like that to stop. If you hurt someone, admit it. Just like you would make us do. We don't get to write pretty letters to the police and say how we didn't do it. So we'd appreciate if the police reports that are drafted were accurate and that they step up their enforcement and supervision of those efforts, including the mandatory issuance of body cams to every single officer on duty without the ability to silence that mic and without the ability to delete the video. That would be fabulous. In a technological era of the 21st century, that should be no problem. We'd also remind you of the demands we've made prior to and during our time speaking to the Department of Justice, a discussion that we've had many times. Those demands include, and we embrace again, what happened with issue 10, that there is justice reform that starts with local community leaders overseeing the police department. And that, and I'll summarize it given our time, and that the department listens to its constituents, and that the fighting stops between the leadership members who are protecting the police, and that's it. That's all they're there for, is to protect the police at the expense of the citizenry. So we'd like that to stop too. Yes?
Bobby, I know this is probably something you're not going to answer because it's a question about the lawsuit, but I'll ask anyway. For the longest time, no one knew who was driving the Buick the night before. And for, at least for me, this is the first time I've seen that there was a white male driving it the night before from a different police department. Without giving any names, can you expound on who was driving the night before?
Well, we've already discussed in prior public conferences, and the city led off, I'll remind you, back in July of 2020, they led off a presentation of what happened that involves Jayland driving the vehicle that night, and that the New Franklin police get the race of the person wrong. We have taken the position, and we take it again, that however you look at that issue, there is absolutely no interest of the officers to arrest anyone for what happened on that chase that may or may not have happened out of Franklin. And the reason I point that out to you is that if you look at the complaint and the allegations that we spell out, we track what was discovered and we track what's been uncovered since then. And what's been uncovered is that the officers first encounter Jayland in the vehicle. They run the plate through leads. They determine he's a licensed, valid owner without warrants. The vehicle comes up as having been involved in a prior night's chase, and they don't do anything about that. So the notion, and this is another reframing of the issues, the notion that the identity of the driver is material to what happened to Jayland is an empty place for us to go. That said, I can't discuss who the identity of the driver is or would be thought of. I'll just say that we have reported, as we've learned, that that was the allegation made, that a white male was driving the vehicle. Yes?
Mr. Paulo, thank you all for your time, first of all.
Thank you.
I just want to ask, if the court decides not to name the officers, will you?
No, well, we don't disagree with the court. Let's make that very clear. It's not our prerogative to decide, when a court's got a motion in front of it, which it has right now, it's not our prerogative to comment on that motion or disagree with any judge. That'll never come out of my mouth or any mouth of my team members here. But what I will say is that, I think my partner Ken put it really well. That whole thing has been a sideshow and a circus that has nothing to do with the death of Jayland Walker fundamentally. And we don't want that sideshow to become the issue here. We want everyone, each one of you who've gathered here today, to remember, look at his face, his beautiful face and his beautiful life. That's what we want. And we want to keep that in focus, his beautiful life. we were reminded that this weekend is Father's Day, and that's a day he'll never share with a child, that he'll never have. And so we want his memory to live today as it ought to have lived last year, on this very day he was alive. Remember that. So we're going to try to keep that focus today. Thank you. Yes?
You alluded to it earlier, there were calls for DOJ to investigate Akron Police. Have you heard anything back since that request was made?
We have heard things back. As you might imagine, the dialogue with the federal government and its leadership is not a one-time encounter. We've had many opportunities, and we continue to work both the phones and the communication channels that we have to remind the federal government of the importance of this family and, frankly, of the importance of this city's current situation. I have to say it again. I will challenge any rational person to tell me how this newsletter that was published in 1998 and 1999, or discovered by then, how this newsletter did not result in the immediate termination of the person who wrote it, and for anyone who received it and thought it was okay. It is, as a friend of mine used to say, is beyond the pale. I can't put my head around it. And so what that tells us, and I'm responding now to the constant drone if this was Jayland's fault that's been in the media, what that tells us is this was not Jayland's fault. There's been a culture of violence in this city, and there's been a constant, ever-present disdain for the citizenry that document shows. And it's proven, I believe, by the fact that people who've reviewed that document and said it was funny are still working in your city right now today as officers. Anybody else? I want to say thank you all. You do a great job and an important job for us. It's what makes America great, in addition to the court system. So our country is special because we have a court system to turn to, and we embrace the opportunity that court system is going to give us. And we thank you for the First Amendment opportunity that we have here today. The very protections that you give us by giving us a chance to say what really happened on June 27th, 2022. Thank you.